Back on Inside Tennessee with Congressman Tim Burchett. Again, he represents the 2nd District in East Tennessee, about 750 or 800,000 constituents. John?
Tim, let's shift to talking about transportation. You're on that committee as well. And I don't know your position. I truly don't. But I can speak as one of many Americans who has endured a really lousy air travel experience just in the last week or two.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that has pretty much inflamed anybody who's had to get on a jet airplane. Now, I don't know what you think, but do you think there is anything that should be done from a legislative perspective to make this experience better or to improve it, or do the airlines need to be held accountable? What do you think?
Yeah, I do believe the airlines need to be held accountable. Yeah, I tried to pass an amendment in the big, the $1.2 trillion transportation bill that specifically said if we're going to give money to the airlines to help bail them out, that none of that money could go to their administrator. It need to go to the baggage handlers, the people taking your tickets, the people sweeping the floors, whatever. And no, it went straight party lines. The Democrats voted that amendment down, and didn't. It went straight Republican Democrats, so of course it lost. But to make matters worse, that entire bill was gutted by the lobbyists and the Speaker of the House. And so it goes back to my original point, is that the lobbyists in the airline industries have way too much control. Yeah, they're going to get spanked on the hand, and they're going to get a little, and then they're going to be up there showering the Capitol with cash legally, and nothing's ever going to get resolved. We've got to start holding their feet to the fire, and in fact start enforcing some of the rules that we have on the books. Because from what I understand, John, that some of the things we have on the books, if we would just enforce them with them, that it would clear up some of these problems. But we don't hold accountability. They come to us on the Zoom meetings, and they're very arrogant, and then they have their folks in Congress that protect them. And that's what happens, and it goes on to another calamity somewhere else.
They've been enjoying some rich times in the last couple of years. It's not been a bad time for the airlines, and
no.
It sort of sounds like they don't want to give that up these days.
Heck no, they don't. They're on the, like I say, the gravy train with biscuit wheels, brother.
One other transportation issue to talk about is something called choice lanes. These are voluntary toll roads, but in this state we'll hear a lot of conversation over the next legislative session at the state level among the governor and the Speaker of the House about building these choice lanes in the state. Is it a good idea?
I don't think so. I was in the state legislature, and I blocked the actual bill because I put an amendment on it that said that either end of that toll road could not be owned by a foreign entity. Because during the Second World War, radio stations were told they could not be owned by a foreign entity, because if we're in an adversarial situation, they could block shipment of trade or what have you. And I just don't think that's a good idea. I think we've been down that road, no pun intended, but I don't think that's a good idea.
What's your opinion of Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary?
Well, I met Pete, or Mayor Pete. I'm not really a big fan, and I'll tell you why. I was the mayor of Knox County, and he's the mayor, but that did not qualify me to be the dadgum Secretary of Transportation. And he's a lot of show and not much go. He'll have this security detail, the line of Suburbans, go about a block ahead of a block before he pulls into his office, and they'll get out, and he'll get his bicycle out and ride his bicycle in. And I saw that more than once, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I know they're grooming him to be the president or vice president, but I'm not a fan.
You're on a new committee, and John North, I know, has some questions about this oversight committee. Yeah. John, why don't you lead into that?
So it's oversight. It is going to be the most entertaining, the most interesting, the most cinematic committee in the United States Congress. There is no doubt. It's like having 5 people who are in the Baseball Hall of Fame on your team, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, et cetera, et cetera. Oversight, obviously, it's going to be led by the Kentucky Congressman James Comer. You just announced that you're on it. What do you hope to accomplish from that? And I know what other more extreme Republicans want to accomplish from it. Sure. It's obvious the direction where that's going to go from Comer's perspective. But are you with them, or is there a particular subject you really want to get at?
I'm a caucus of one. I'm not in the Freedom Caucus. I've withdrawn from Republican Study Committee. I'll do my own thing. I'm not going to jump on the first first wagon that comes down the road. And I know a lot of it's going to be the sensationalism, a lot of the things,
It is.
Hunter Biden's laptop and all that.
There should be a Hunter Biden subcommittee for this group.
Yeah. And so I think there's going to be a lot of that, and there's plenty there that we should look at some point. But you always got to remember, this is the committee of jurisdiction that all those things go to. They're not going to be talking about it in transportation. They're not going to be talking about education, health care, any of the other committees.
Yeah.
And so
So what's your top priority for that committee?
just the truth, honestly, because I won't be setting the agenda, obviously, the chairman will. And Kevin McCarthy, now Speaker McCarthy, called me, and I looked down and said, oh, it's Kevin McCarthy. Then I said, wow, it's Speaker of the House. That's kind of historical. And he said, I'd like to put you on that committee. And I said, that'd be great. And, I didn't seek it out, it's kind of a plum committee. And so I suspect, oddly enough, they might have me there to
mediate.
Maybe. I was told by a national reporter, who I won't say their name, but he said that, what's it feel like being the only adult in the room? And I told him, I said, don't pass that around. I don't need that. But
Well, speaking of that, we only have about a minute left for this segment, but describe the tumult on the House floor that you were right in the middle of in voting for Speaker McCarthy. You did it 15 times. The people you were sitting next to vowed never to vote.
Well, that's my spot. I always sit there. I call it Center's Row. And generally and they were sitting beside me.
Center's Row?
That's what I call
Okay.
it, because I'm there. I'm a center. I'm forgiven.
So
just
Gates
center.
is there, Boebert's there?
Boebert's beside me, Gates is there. And, and I was talking to them about things that are important, that what we've accomplished. And then, and Matt walked, I said to Boebert, I said, where's Matt? And she said, he's doing some media. And he came in. And he said, hey, they were going to let me look at the rules package before we voted on this final time, because it was close to being worked out. And one of the staffers, who I thought was out of place, said, you're not going to get a chance to look at it before we vote on it. And that ticked Matt off. And he said, okay, fine, we'll come back Monday. Mm-hmm. And then McCarthy came over and told us about one of the members. We weren't aware of it at the time, but his wife had a premature pregnancy. He left to go be with her. They had the baby. Is healthy. He hopped on a plane and came back. And there's families there, and Matt wasn't made aware of that. And then the congressman from Alabama, who was heated, came over and said some things that probably shouldn't have, and maybe I said some things to him as well. And so about that time, it was about to blow up. Mm-hmm. And one of the members of leadership and I'd already agreed that we would call for a recess, maybe 1 hour, maybe till Monday. And then you could see it really getting hot. And I looked at Kevin McCarthy, and I gave that, and I think I was on Fox News, somebody made a meme out of it. And and then I leaned over to Matt, and I said some things to Matt. And then there was a meme on that, and I think they played the theme from The Godfather. And Matt wants to tell you what I said to him, that's fine. But we talked about things that were important. Matt, if you see me, said, okay. And then Matt changed his mind on the recess, and then we all ran down there with the red card because we'd already voted. And when you're within like a 3 or 4 minute time before they call the vote, you can't vote on the machine with your ID card. And so you had to run down there with the red card and change it. And that's how it happened. And that's how Kevin McCarthy's the Speaker of the House.
We got to take another quick break on Inside Tennessee. Back with more with Congressman Burchett right after this.
We'll see that video again.